From the awarded for Kit Guru, this laptop is the Asus Republic of Gamers or ROG GL702ZC. Not the greatest model code, very similar to other Asus ROG model codes, but this laptop is completely different, and let me show you what it can do in Cinebench R15. And just look at it go. Hauls through Cinebench, because this laptop is the laptop that Kit Guru readers in a recent survey said they wanted to see. It is AMD throughout, so a Ryzen 7 1700 processor, and that is a desktop processor, so AM4 socket, and it is RX580 graphics, Polaris. Look at it, absolutely howling along, and nice and quiet. We'll come to the noise in a bit, because if you stress this laptop to the full, it does actually get quite raughty. But that CPU test there is actually, in fairness, showing this laptop in its best light. But let's rattle through the features. So it's a 17.3-inch chassis. The panel is full HD, IPS, and has FreeSync. It's 60 Hz. Internally, you've got two memory slots. Only one of them is populated, so it is single channel DDR4. We've got one SSD inside. It's an M.2 from SanDisk. It doesn't appear to be an NVMe though. It is M.2 but not NVMe. And it's got a hard drive backing that up to give you some bulk storage. The RX580 graphics clocked slightly lower than the regular desktop chip. Presumably that's to contain the heat. Ports and connectors are reasonably well arranged, so you've got three USB 3.0s, one USB 3.1 Type-C, but that's Gen 1, so it's not Thunderbolt-esque, so think of that as USB 3.0 as well. Audio in and out, RJ45 LAN, HDMI, mini DisplayPort, a perfectly decent set of speakers, and in addition inside you've got 802.11 AC Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 4.2. Nothing earth-shaking there, but a perfectly decent setup. Inside the laptop, the arrangement of heat pipes it's a bit wibbly wobbly actually, and it's also notable that the two heatsinks are not exactly the same size. The GL702ZC hauls through Cinebench, and indeed if you throw any CPU intensive task at it, no trouble whatsoever. 8 cores, 16 threads, a reasonable amount of memory, a reasonable SSD, it's gonna perform, and it does. The cooling system on that CPU works perfectly adequately. Temperatures are maintained under extreme load at 91, but that's when I was loading both CPU and GPU together, because if you're doing something like video editing, very often the GPU is also coming into effect. So testing the CPU on its own in isolation, the GPU, it doesn't really make a lot of sense unless you're, say, specifically doing Blender. If you're buying a laptop to do Blender, you're a curious person. But this laptop performs in CPU tests, and here's where we start to get to the curiosity with it, which is gaming center software, and it's Asus ROG Republic of Gamers. And yet to my mind this is not really a ROG laptop, it is a ZenBook. It's not a ZenBook because it weighs 3.2 kilos and it's 32 to 34 mil thick. ZenBooks are thin and light. Asus doesn't have a category for workstation laptops. I'm personally quite convinced if they did, this laptop will fit in that category. As it is, it's not a ZenBook by default, therefore it is a ROG. If you're looking to buy this laptop to play games, I think you're going to be disappointed. If on the other hand, you're looking to buy a workstation laptop that could also play games, different story. Why do I say you're going to be disappointed if you play games? Let me show you. And as Firestrike loads up, let's talk about those gaming graphics. RX 580 graphics would not be the gamer's typical choice for hardware. It's just a fact. They're competent, but they're not great. GTX 1060 is good, GTX 1070 is better, GTX 1080 you're laughing. The trouble is these RX 580 graphics just do not compare to laptops that even have GTX 1060, let alone GTX 1070. So for example, if you take a Razer Blade, which is Core i7 7700 HQ, and also GTX 1060, in gaming terms it stomps all over this laptop. Balanced against that, if you're doing video editing or some such, this laptop's got the CPU, and the Razer Blade will be sitting there howling away because it's so thin and light. So there is a differentiation, but here we go. We're going through 3D Mark, Firestrike, and it's going along very nicely. And more to the point, it looks good. The screen is a really nice panel. IPS, Full HD, 60 Hz, FreeSync, all good stuff. And that's the thing with this laptop. It's really confusing to me. It's pulling through 3D Mark Firestrike very nicely. It looks great. That IPS panel 60Hz FreeSync looks good. I would like to see it in 4K, but those graphics can't drive it. So the Full HD panel makes perfect sense. Switching to 4K, it's just going to die. That's all there is to it. So what's the point? Even though it's a 17.3, 4K is just unrealistic. Video editing with 4K it works better, but you need an awful lot of processor and graphics to drive it. This laptop has the processor, it does not have the graphics, so the balance of components makes sense. I'm not best pleased about the fact it's single channel memory. I would like a faster SSD. It's not the end of the world. The snag here is that this laptop is expensive. £1,800 is a lot of money. We've recently seen a PC Specialist laptop, which is your standard Intel and Nvidia combo, for about £1,400. And while it's not competing in the same market, that's the problem. You typically do not expect to spend this sort of money for a laptop that really can't deliver high-end gaming frame rates. That's just a fact of life. So this laptop is really a niche purchase. It's someone who primarily wants CPU, but they also need some graphics. And those people, I think, are fairly few and far between. And I shouldn't think they typically look to shop with Asus for a ROG laptop for that unusual setup. And here's Firestrike finished, 9400. I've previously seen 9600. The snag is the Razer Blade with the GTX 1060 graphics will give you 12300. The scores are quite different. There's a gulf. There's just a gulf. And this comes across in frame rates for games. So whereas you'd see 40 something in a really intensive game with a Razer Blade, you'll see 30 something, low 30 somethings with this laptop. Obviously you can turn down IQ. You're going to have to turn down IQ. That's just all there is to it. But overall it performs, but it does not perform massively successfully. But let's just really put some load on those graphics. We open up ADA 64, we're going to stress both the CPU and the GPU. We've got graphs there for the CPU temperature, and we've got GPU Z over there will tell us what the GPU is doing, as the name suggests. And it's starting to build. The vents are on the back of the laptop. The only microphone we've got here is this one here. No microphones over that way at all, and I'm between the two. I'm going to hear more of this than you are. But I want to make this just as reasonable a test as possible. And it's getting louder. CPU temperature is now past 80 degrees. GPU temperature is 70 something. Fans are ramping up. Fans are ramping up really nice and gently actually. They're not howling into life, but they are getting noisy. And if this laptop was now settling down to rendering a video for the next hour or so, you'd be wanting some headphones or to be leaving it in a different room. Fans are spinning up somewhat more, and now we've got the thing of the air's passing through the exhaust nozzle. And I now consider this to be aggravating. Put it this way, if I was sitting on a train doing some video editing, not the most likely scenario I admit, I think the people around me would be getting a little bit, angsty at this moment. And I think I'll shut down that stress test now. And we'll let the temperatures drop back down. Now, while that laptop's hammering away the CPU and the GPU, it's drawing 280 watts at the wall socket, and that power brick's sized at 330 watts. So Asus knows exactly what they're doing. They know this laptop is a juicy laptop. They've given you the adequate power brick for it. That's all fine. It does mean you are not going to work this laptop sensibly on battery. We all know that gamers don't game on battery, they game with power plugged in. The thing is that the battery life is actually fairly dire. Doing regular office stuff, not hammering it like that kind of hammering it, but just doing regular connected to the web and doing webby types of stuff, the battery barely lasts an hour and 5 or 10 minutes, hour and 4 minutes. You can double that for real world because we don't tend to sit there typing away constantly while we're doing real stuff. So 2 hours of battery life in the real world, which for a chassis of this size is not good. not impressed. Other things about it that are curious, the keyboard, the chiclet keyboard, it's got really short travel. It's very flat. The key arrangement is slightly peculiar, but it's okay. I mean, it's not the greatest, but it is okay. Also, it's not RGB, it's just black and red in that traditional Asus ROG style, which is actually quite appropriate to AMD after all. It's something that's radiant colours. But the fact it's not RGB is a bit of a shame. I'm not massively stressed, but the thing is, the red lettering on the keys and the only backlight being red, it makes it really hard to read it in dim lighting. The option of turning on white lights on the keyboard would be very handy. Better yet, white legends on the keycaps, hey chaps. In that sense, the keyboard is not great, but in terms of usability, in terms of typing, it's all right, but really short travel. Overall, a peculiar laptop. It's a laptop that KitGuru readers had asked to see. I'm glad we've seen it, but it's really catering to a niche market. People who primarily want CPU and then GPU as a kind of, yeah, I'm going to need that on occasion. This is all about those 8 cores, 16 threads of Ryzen 7 hardware. So, novel laptop, certainly. Is it a stellar success? Not to my mind. Is it for gamers? No. No, it's a workstation laptop. Ignore the Asus ROG labeling. It's workstation. It's just not a ZenBook because it's quite chunky. If you've got that clear in your mind, it'd be absolutely fine. If you buy it for gaming, I think you're going to be bitterly disappointed and a lot poorer. If you like this video, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. If you want more from KitGuru, click to subscribe. I'm Leo Waldock. This is the Asus ROG GL702ZC.